Okay, welcome to part 4 of my XR2 rescue mission video series that I'm putting together. In the last part, we brought the XR2 down from orbit and landed it safely here at Wide Awake International. This was the one that had very low oxygen and almost no fuel. It's now down on the ground and the crew is safe. So let's switch back over to the other XR2. This is the one that did the actual rescue operation. It's still up here in orbit. So what I would like to do in this video is go ahead and bring this XR2 back over to the space station. No point in leaving it stranded. So let's go ahead and see if we can accomplish that. Turning on the APU so I can close the nose cone. Due to the very limited amount of fuel that we have, we're not going to be able to do a direct plane change. So we're going to have to do the atmospheric method yet again. Let's bring up a line plane MFD and target the ISS. So we're 22.45 degrees out of plane, which makes sense because that's how far out of plane we were to begin with. And we're not too far away from the descending node, so we'll be able to lower the other side of the orbit. Go ahead and warp time ahead to get over to that point. And bring up orbit MFD on this side so we can see our orbit. I'm just going to bump time forward a little bit further. We want to get all the way to the node. Right about there. Make sure I'm in the full retrograde position. Now I'll bring the periapsis down again to about 74 kilometers, right around that number. 73, 74, something like that.
Warning, main fuel low. System reset. Rotation, translation.
And let's hope that we have enough fuel to do this. We're very low on fuel. I may have to transfer some RCS over. Actually, I'm not even completely sure I'll have enough to get over to the ISS. Let's find out. So we just lowered the other side of the orbit. Now we've got to warp time ahead to get over there. And we're down to about 120 kilometers. So let's go prograde. And again, since we're coming up to the ascending node,
Rotation.
we want to be rotated the other direction. And just like before, I want a 15-degree angle of attack, so I'm going to put in full up elevator trim and add in about that much center of gravity shift. That seemed to work very well last time. Now I'll turn the APU off to save some fuel, and we'll warp time ahead to get down a little bit further. Go ahead and leave that MFD there, and I'll open up surface MFD so we can keep an eye on our important vertical speed information. But for now, let's warp time ahead.
27 plus.
Okay, we're holding at about 15 degrees. Angle of attack, that's what we want. Come out of time warp now and start paying attention to how things are coming along. You can see our periapsis rapidly deteriorating as we're getting drag here in the atmosphere, but we're getting the rate
Mach 26.
that we need to bring down the relative inclination. We'll rotate a little left to start making sure the vertical speed doesn't dive us into the atmosphere. And in the interest of time, I'm going to see if I can get away with just a little bit of time warp. Not much, but I think we can get away with 2 or 3. Go back to 1x for a moment. We need to
Mach 25.
climb a little bit. We're getting a little low. Go to 3x again. And now we're climbing. Brought our relative inclination down by 10 degrees already. Back to 1x so I can level out here. Don't want to climb too much. And pretty soon we're going to need to roll level. Get back to 1x because we are going back down.
Mach 24.
Okay, now we're going to turn the APU on. It is time to go back to the center position.
Warning, retro doors open.
Oops, left those open.
Warning, retro doors open.
Now I'm going to add in some main engine. What I want to do, obviously, is bring up the other side of the orbit, but I want to bring it up so that by the time I get over to the descending node, I'm still at, roughly 74 kilometers. Keeping a close eye on my fuel. Although if I run out, there's just not much I can do about it. Can transfer some over, but not much. Okay, the apoapsis is up to 85 kilometers and still climbing. And again, I want to make sure that it doesn't go too high, because by the time I get
25.
over to the descending node, I want to be back down to that 73, 74 kilometer point. So I'm going to warp time ahead a little bit. A little bit more.
Mach 26.
And we're getting up pretty high, so I'm going to go to 10x.
Mach 27 plus.
And we're just going to wait till we get around to the other side here. Still climbing. Almost up to apoapsis. So hopefully by the time I get to the descending node, I'll come back down enough to be able to do some more atmospheric corrections. And we're now on the way back down. And it's not
Mach
quite.
27 plus.
That's pretty close. That's pretty close. Okay, so this time we need to roll the other way. APU on, reset the
APU offline.
elevator trim. And add in a little bit of center of gravity. Right there. And I've got a pretty low vertical speed, so
26.
I'm going to start rolling out so that my vertical acceleration is positive. That'll bring the vertical speed closer to 0. And we've got a good low rate relative inclination coming down quickly. And I gotta really watch that so that I roll out in time, because I don't want to get the relative inclination
APU
down to 0 and then go the other direction. Although the time to the node's counting up. Not actually sure what to do about that. I think if I get rid of some of my angle attack, that'll prevent it from counting up so quickly, I think. Guess not. Well, as long as I get it low, the relative inclination fairly low, then, you know, again, I don't have to worry about getting it all the way down to 0. Just gonna go wings level for a moment to see if I can get closer to the node. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to transfer some fuel over, so I'm gonna start that now.
Information. APU running. Crossfeed off. Information. APU 25.
Okay, I'm gonna go with that, even though it's not down to 0.5 or lower, but I don't want to spend any more time in the atmosphere because it's just gonna continually decrease my energy. So let's start.
Information. APU running.
Let's increase the other side of the orbit.
Warning. Main fuel low. Mach 26. System reset.
I'm gonna close this out for now.
Mach 27 plus.
Okay, let me just get over to apoapsis. Okay, right about there. Okay, I brought the other side of the orbit up to 180. And now, again, I'll come around to the descending node, and I'll just see if I can get some more correction. And I'm just going to use linear. Okay, let's go with that.
Translation. Rotation. Translation.
Okay, I'm going to say that's good enough. Now, going to start setting up the rendezvous with the ISS. Getting very, very low on fuel. Hopefully I've got enough to make it. So same thing as before, bring up transx, and we're going to target ships, ISS. And we're going to switch this view. To focus. And we can see here the green line pointing to where we're at in our orbit, and this points to where the ISS is at in its orbit. Now it's behind us and we're lower, so we're actually going to have to go around a lot of orbits to catch up because we're traveling faster than the ISS, so we're going to get ahead of it by more and more, so there's not any point in trying to set up transects just yet. I definitely don't want to raise my orbit above the ISS and try to let it catch up to me, because that would just use a lot of fuel, and I don't have the fuel to do that. So we're going to not do the maneuver yet. And I need to come around to apoapsis and raise the opposite side of my orbit up to 180 so that I'm not deteriorating my orbit on each pass. Okay, go prograde. Okay, now the orbit is basically circular. We're at 175 by 175, which is a little low. I'm a little worried that that's going to deteriorate, so I'm going to have to keep an eye on it. But what I'm going to have to do is warp time ahead and go around a bunch of orbits until I catch up to the ISS on the other side. And I'll show you what I mean. But as I do that, I'm going to really have to watch my orbit. You can see it's going down by, 0.1. But what'll happen here is that, I'm getting farther ahead. Eventually I'll get to the point where I'm so far ahead that I'm exactly on the opposite side of the planet, and then I'll start catching up. I'm gonna have to raise my orbit a little bit more. It's just too dangerous to have it where it's at. We'll just bring it up to 200. Okay, that's better. Now, okay. Should be a little safer now. I'm at 200 by 200. Now I can warp time ahead and I shouldn't be deteriorating. Wasn't paying attention. Caught up faster than I thought I would. Okay, let's turn maneuver mode on now and see what we can do about rendezvousing. Good thing about this vessel is I got plenty of oxygen. So far the mission's been almost 2 days. We're at 1 day, 23 hours. Okay, now I'm going to add in just a little bit of prograde because I need to raise my orbit. How much delta V do I have left? 473 meters per second. Yeah, we should be able to do this. So I'm going to raise my orbit on the opposite side so that I'm at the altitude of the ISS. Now I just have to find the time to make it work. This isn't exactly what I want to do, but I warped time ahead too far. So now I'm going to have to go into an oblonged orbit to catch up, but I do have the fuel for it. Otherwise I would have to go around a bunch of orbits, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so somewhere over here. Let's just find the right time. Okay. And it's going to require a little bit of plane change because we are still out by some amount. Okay. Okay, that's got us down to 217 meters. That is definitely at the ISS. $66 meters. $20 meters, so we're right there. Okay. So that would be a cost of 108. We've got the fuel for that. And that's coming up in 1,600 seconds. Let's warp time ahead, get closer to that point, and then we'll update transx and get a more accurate reading. Okay, right about there. When you warp time ahead by more than 500 or 600 seconds, you always want to go back to your maneuver and update it here, because you can see it'll have some change. Fortunately, that change isn't even relevant, but it's especially important when you have to warp time ahead by several thousand seconds. Yeah, that's got us all the way. Yep. Shouldn't have messed with that, just making it worse. Anyway, there we go. And this is going to mostly be prograde.
Rotation.
I could do this maneuver cheaper if I went around a few more orbits, but I don't want to do that. when I was warping time ahead, I overshot a little bit, so it's costing me some extra fuel. Okay, we're almost ready to do the burn. Burning in 5 seconds.
Translation.
And maneuver mode off. And it's showing that we're going to be within 300 meters of the ISS by the time we get over there. And that's going to be in just a little bit. I'm going to set that off to the side for now and start setting up our frequencies for the ISS. I have to bring up object info so I can get the docking info. That's 130, that's right, okay. Go 137.40 on this one, and we'll set this one to 137. Let's go the other way. 137.30, that'll give us 2 choices when we get over there. Okay. I'm going to change over to the docking HUD and docking MFD. Help me keep track of how close I am. For now, I'm watching the time. We're gonna rendezvous at 65. Okay, we're getting fairly close. I don't need this. Actually, burn time calculator may come in handy. Turn the AP1, retro doors.
Rotation.
And let's face the ISS, even though we're still a ways out. Okay, my encounter velocity, according to TransX, bring it over here so you can see it, it's going to be 192 meters per second.
Information. APU information. 70%. APU running.
And if we want to know how long that'll take to eliminate using the retro engines, you can type in that number into burn time calculator, 192, let's call it 193, and we need 3 kilometers using the retro engines. Really? Didn't think it'd be that much. Anyway, we're still 138 kilometers out, so let's warp time forward, get closer. Okay, let's rotate around and have a look.
Translation.
Go ahead and switch to nav2 and copy that information to the HUD so we can see our target for the corridor. Three kilometers, really? Huh.
Rotation.
So we're going to start the burn here pretty quickly.
5,000.
There we
4,000.
go now. Start a little early.
3,000. 2,000. 1,000.
And I'm just watching the vertical speed. We'll go with that.
800. Translation.
Keep some of our forward velocity.
Rotation.
And let's dock.
700. 600. APU offline.
Just opening the nose cone now.
100. $300. 200. Translation.
Okay, we're gonna
Rotation.
oops.
Translation. Rotation. 100.
We should be passing in front of the docking collar, more or less. It's above us.
Translation.
Okay, now we just need to get everything lined up according to doc MFD.
Rotation.
And we're heading in the right direction. You can see the yellow arrow there pointing up toward the X, and this yellow X is where we need to be going. So we need to go up and we need to go a little over. Warp time ahead a little bit. And we're closing in faster, so I'm going to slow things down because we're not moving up as fast as we're moving forward.
Translation. Rotation.
Okay.
50. 40.
I'm going to add in a little more upward movement. Everything's centered up a little better first.
Translation. Rotation. Thirty. Translation.
And slow down that upward movement.
20. Rotation.
My instincts for rotating are always backwards.
Translation. Rotation. Translation. 15. Rotation. Translation.
Almost there.
Rotation. Translation. Rotation. Translation. Rotation. Translation. 9. Rotation. Eight. Translation. Rotation. Translation. 7. Rotation. Translation. 6. Rotation. 5. Translation. 4. Rotation. Translation. Two. Rotation. One. Translation.
Should do it right there. Nope. Doggone it.
Rotation. Translation. One.
Have to back off a little bit. That was... somehow I messed that up.
Rotation. Translation.
So technically that was a crash.
Rotation. Two. Translation. One. Rotation. Translation. Contact.
Houston, we show capture and hard dock. Congratulations.
I'll have to watch the video playback to see what happened there on that first attempt at contact. It seemed to me like I was within the range, but something was off. At any rate, that gets us back to the ISS, so the mission is complete and it's successful, and we did it within the fuel budget that was allowed, and we certainly don't have tons of extra fuel left over. 1.1% on the main, 10.9% on RCS. Of course, oxygen in this vessel was never an issue. It had all the oxygen that we needed to go to the rescue ship and back. And we did the whole thing in 2 days and 1 hour. Would have been a little faster had I not messed up the rendezvous coming back to the ISS. But that's going to wrap up this series. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it was entertaining. I like to make videos where I can show different ideas, different techniques of things we can try, rather than just repeating, the same Earth to Moon or Earth to ISS, because if you just continually do the same thing, it's not that interesting to keep watching new videos. So that's going to wrap it up here. As always, if you have any questions about anything that you saw in this video or any of the other previous three, go ahead and leave those questions down below. And if you liked the video, leave me some comments. And maybe if you have some suggestions for some things that you would like to see, go ahead and leave those suggestions. I can't promise that I'll be able to do whatever your suggestion is, especially if it involves downloading additional stuff. But if you have some ideas that appeal to me, I'll definitely try to see if I can fit it in. And that's going to wrap it up. I will see you next time.